Oh boy, this is just downright depressing, but not surprising. I think that we've been predicting this for a while, and, I think a lot of you in my chat, a lot of you who are trans, or just LGBT broadly, have probably considered this exact path, and so I don't think this story is going to surprise many of you, but I'm sure it will disappoint you. Vice News. Some trans people are preparing to flee the US and seek asylum abroad. Quote unquote, all I need to do is look at the news and see how bad it's going to get. Ryan, or Reen? Asriel Wilgos. I don't know how that name is pronounced. I'm scared that because that could literally be like a take on Ryan, or it could literally be like a more feminine like name, like Reen or Rin. I don't, Rin Asriel Wilgos, a 50-year-old transgender woman. Well, there we go. It's probably Reen. Transgender woman, has been rapidly researching ways to flee the United States. She's from the US, but with physical attacks against transgender and non-binary people on the rise and lawmakers targeting transgender people with increasingly draconian legislation that criminalizes their very existence, very true, Wilgos is worried. The national landscape, accompanied by other of her own personal experiences, has made a future in the US feel untenable for Wilgos. In March 2021, when Wilgos had just started her transition, she was traveling across the state for work when she decided to stop at a public bathroom. A man followed her inside and pushed her up against a wall. Quote unquote, I thought he was going to choke me to death, she said to Vice News. Today, she mostly feels safe and far. By the way, this is the reality of trans people in bathrooms, them getting assaulted and like threatened, not them doing assaulting or threatening of other people. There is no evidence of like a epidemic or even like a trend or even like a problem. Like it's happened a few times, like not even that, of trans people, particularly trans women, going into women's bathrooms to attack or assault women. So yeah, that just hasn't happened. What has happened is men going into women's bathrooms to assault trans women. That has happened, like here, I'm pretty sure. Today, she mostly feels safe in Fargo, North Dakota, where she lives, but she's careful in rural areas. And when she leaves the state, she often doesn't feel safe at all. There's like 30 states right now I wouldn't even drive through, Wilgos said. Her own experiences and increasingly hostile national climate inspired Wilgos to start Transport, a budding nonprofit that seeks to help trans people transition, navigate bureaucratic mazes, and ultimately finance their journeys as they flee the country. Literally an underground railroad. I'm not kidding. Assuming they don't literally genocide all the trans people and the good guys win and evil does not prevail in all of this, kids are going to read about the trans underground railroad in history books in the future. I want you to think about that. There is going to be stories about the transgender underground railroad, effectively, in history books. About how these brave trans rights advocates fought against the tyrannical Republicans that were trying to erase their existence. And guess what? The Republicans in the future are going to be trying to ban the teaching of that history. They're going to try to ban the teaching of what happened in our generation, what we witnessed. They're going to try to ban teaching about what we witnessed because it'll make them look bad, because people will recognize it's part of a long repeating pattern, the same shit over and over and over and over and over and over again. Wilgos is considering claiming asylum in Iceland, a country she visited last summer and considers more accepting and safer than the US, and she felt like being trans was a non-issue while there. Though there's currently a lack of clarity around whether it's even possible for transgender US citizens to claim asylum elsewhere, and an expert told Vice News it's unlikely. The devolving situation in the US has inspired people like Wilgos to try. All you need to do is look at the news and see how bad it's going to get in the country, Wilgos said. We're accused of being pedophiles and of grooming children. We're being accused of being a social contagion that makes every child think they're in the queer community. That's the furthest from the truth. By the way, the vast majority of trans people, like for the most part, when it comes to talking to kids, they're typically pretty cautious, right? Like if they're trying to provide like pro-trans messaging or resources to kids, they know that like being trans is not easy. And if this kid potentially, it's a false positive, this kid doesn't actually have gender dysphoria and isn't truly desiring a different gender identity, most trans people know the risks of a cis person mistakenly pursuing transition. They're well aware, and I assure you they consider those worries as part of their caution. Am I wrong? I'm not trans, so I don't personally know this, but from what I've seen, that has been the case overwhelmingly. It was while she was fielding those phone calls that Wilgos stumbled on the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees guidelines on refugee status based on sexual and gender orientation. I was like, wait a minute, this is crazy, Wilgos remembered thinking. I can actually declare asylum just because I'm trans. She's currently reaching out to LGBTQ organizations in European countries to learn more about the options that exist for her and the people she hopes to help flee. By the way, this is like probably a provision put in place to help like trans and LGBT people escape countries in like the Middle East that are like, you know, they'll kill you if you're gay, that kind of stuff, right? So pretty wild that now America is pretty much on the same level as like Saudi Arabia. Though honestly, Saudi Arabia and America have a lot more in common than you'd think. Though Transport doesn't have an official roster of clients yet, they have only just begun working and plan on accepting applications soon. Wilgos added that she'd like to start accepting applicants for clients soon. Hopefully we start taking applications towards the end of February and help people get the ball rolling to make the leap across the ocean, she said, adding that anyone who benefits from transport services will also be asked to support future clients. I think that's fair, obviously. About 30 people, about 6 locally in the near North Dakota and others peppered across the U.S. have already reached out to the group since local media first reported on them, including a single gay man who is immigrating to the Netherlands and offered to marry an American so that they'd be able to relocate with him. Wilgos said, "For now, Transport will primarily serve trans people in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota, but Wilgos said she'd either like to expand the group or see further similar organizations pop up elsewhere." I really hope someone is able to garner some helpful advice from this video. Like, hopefully someone out there from one of these states is like, wait, Transport, Transport, all one word, but it's like all caps trans. I'll hit them up and actually ends up getting help from this group. That would be amazing if they ended up finding about this group and getting help from this video. That's what I hope for. Given what we're seeing in terms of states proposing more and more harsh laws that target trans people, as well as violence that we're seeing in our communities, it doesn't surprise me that people seek other places in other countries. Aaron Reed, a trans activist and researcher, told Vice News. I know that person. I've seen them on Twitter. Wilgos' work has inspired others as well. Shortly after Wilgos arrived at her decision, her colleague Zara Crystal told Wilgos that she was also weighing her future in the US and expressed interest in relocating to Sweden. "Ever since I can remember, I never felt safe, comfortable, or at home in this country," said Crystal told Vice News. She now helps run Transport and is considering leaving the US at the end of 2024. The 20-year-old came out as trans as a teenager, but like Wilgos, Crystal was forced into conversion therapy. Her parents eventually gave her an ultimatum. If she transitioned, they'd cut her off. Crystal's parents have forbidden her from speaking to her siblings until they turn 18 years old. "We're just riding out and hoping for the best and preparing for the worst at this point. A lot of people that I know are at least making plans to leave just in case stuff goes down," Crystal said, of marginalized people, including LGBTQ people. Crystal said Fargo is relatively safe compared to other regions in the state, but still, she's experienced frightening discrimination, including death threats. "Somebody also recently tried to run her over with their car," Crystal said. The last few years have been marked by a dramatic uptick in anti-trans hate in the United States. In 2022 alone, more than 171 anti-trans bills and more than 300 anti-LGBTQ bills overall were introduced across the US. They've already begun in 2023 as well, with a bill proposed in Oklahoma that would ban gender-affirming care for people under 26 years old. On top of all this, anti-trans political attacks have been propped up by anti-trans rhetoric on the far right, and in some cases, by respected media outlets. All this has set up a backdrop for violence, and in November 2022, a mass shooting at Colorado Springs gay nightclub Club Q that left 5 people dead, including 2 trans people. Trans activists have even argued that the onslaught amounts to genocide. I agree. This is the start of genocide, guys. This is how it starts. A peppering of lone wolves taking it amongst themselves to do what the state can't yet is always where it starts, guys. Trans people are more than 4 times more likely than their cis peers to be the victims of violence, including rape and aggravated assault. And black and brown trans people are at an even higher risk. Trans people are also more likely to suffer fatal violence, something the Human Rights Campaign has been tracking since 2013. So not only are trans people really likely to have violence sent upon them, but they're most likely to have fatal violence, like to be killed. Like, to be clear, it's not like gay bashing where it's like, you go out and you beat up a gay person and they limp home, like very clearly horrific and awful. They want to kill you because you're trans. They think that, like, this is beyond, like, the average, like, there's always been murders and killings for being gay, but, like, there is higher rates of murder for trans people. They want to kill you, not just beat you up, make your life harder, and force you to hide in pain. They want to kill you. That's why the hate crimes are more fatal. You can look at the hate crimes to be very clear as to what these people want to have done to you on a more larger systemic level. They're hunting you. They're actively hunting you. It's because things have gotten so bad, and are getting worse, that Transport was established in the first place. Transport, which started as a Facebook page, gained its non-profit status in November, meaning the group can now accept donations, Wilgos said. The group aspires to collect enough to help people navigate bureaucracy and access funds to legally change their gender on government documents ahead of travel, as well as apply for passports before then paying for flights to get them overseas. Wilgos also hopes to research healthcare systems and job opportunities in other countries and form partnerships with European LGBTQ groups so that people don't feel stranded if and when they relocate. I wish transport didn't have to be a thing. I wish that we didn't live in a country where our rights are regularly debated in our government, said Lillian Goiter. I assume it's how it's pronounced. President of Fargo Pride Collective and transport collaborator. But I'm glad Rian? I'm assuming it's Rian. I'm glad Rian has stepped up and made these big moves for us. The UN guidelines around LGBTQ asylum claimants are broad. The term persecution can be considered to involve serious human rights violations, including a threat to life or freedom, as well as other kinds of serious harm. Physical, psychological, and sexual violence are listed as threats that would generally meet the threshold level required to establish persecution. The guidelines also say that a person doesn't need to have a history of persecution to potentially qualify for asylum. Despite these guidelines, many countries in Europe have come under fire for failing to welcome LGBTQ migrants, and in 2017, when the European Union tried to tally the number of LGBTQ immigrants seeking asylum, not a single member country was able to give an exact tally, which makes it difficult to determine whether countries are honoring UN guidelines. Sweden has welcomed some LGBTQ asylum, though to be fair, it's probably good that they're not tracking how many of the asylum seekers are gay. Like, if they're like, hey, we're not asking that, then that's probably a good thing. That's ideal. Like, you actually, like, once they start cataloging you based on your identity, that's when you want to get scared. In part because local advocacy groups fought in 2006 to update Swedish laws that the fear of persecution as a result of gender identity and/or sexual orientation would explicitly be included within the definition of refugee. But Iceland, while known for its LGBTQ-friendly atmosphere, has reportedly opted not to welcome LGBTQ refugees. Cringe, Iceland. Fuck Iceland. And it's unlikely that trans people from the US will successfully claim asylum in countries like Sweden, Iceland, and Germany. European cases when it comes to trans cases are generally very strict. Asylum is really a high bar process. Nora Norala, a human rights researcher based in Berlin, told Vice News, "It's not hard for Americans to come to Europe. If any trans Americans want to come, they have a lot of options. They don't need to apply for asylum." Interesting. Well, chat, I need to give some commentary on this, alright? I don't know what the future holds, okay? I know that people like to meme about me predicting the future, but I know it's very much a meme, okay? I don't know what the future holds. I can only look at the clues, I can only look at the direction things are headed, and make an educated guess. And right now, it looks like we're going to see an escalation in the right and in Republicans pushing against trans and LGBT rights. But here's what I think is the most likely outcome as a response to it. The Democrats have always done best, as they did in the most recent election, when the Republicans are focusing on culture war topics. You see, the Democrats never are actually able to win when they advocate for genuine positive change, because the policies they advocate for that would actually cause change are pretty scary to most Americans. It's just true. Americans get scared when they hear a Democrat politician that's more radical, more progressive, put forward their plan of how they're going to provide everyone with free healthcare. They get scared. It's true. They just do. People vote Democrat, however, when the Republicans are the ones being scary. When the Republicans are meeting all of the negative stereotypes that our culture has set for them. When they're banning abortion. When they're banning gay marriage. When they're going after gay people. When they're attacking minorities just for existing. The Republicans have been doing this shamelessly and unapologetically, more so than they have for a while lately. It is very possible that if the Democrats are smart in 2020, we may see the greatest Republican loss in an election in history in 2024. The Republicans have been really showing their ass. Like, really showing their ass. And I don't know. I think the worse they are, the better the Democrats have of a chance of destroying them in the election. People are dumb, but they're not dumb enough for most of them to be blind to what's right in their face. When the Republicans are able to hide behind euphemisms and dog whistles and a cultural perception that they are the underdog trying to gain power to make things better, they're able to win. When they're the ones in power taking away minorities' rights and making things suck, and they've got no underdog platform to stand on, most reasonable people are going to see and call bullshit. That's what I think. If you guys agree, or if you disagree, I'd like to see your opinions down below in the comments section. Please comment down below on the video. And of course, if you want to support my video, please consider leaving a like. It really helps out my videos, my channel, my VODs, everything. I think a lot more than you guys realize. You can also support me financially by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, by hitting those buttons up there on the top left. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon and turn on all notifications, of course. And make sure to follow my social medias, all linked down below in the description, including Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord, etc. With all that said, no matter how you watch me or support me, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good one.